No one is your puppet, and yet everyone moves according to your inner world. That's not manipulation. That's manifestation. At first, this sounds impossible. How can someone have free will and still behave in a way that matches your inner beliefs? How can the world respond to your assumptions without you forcing anything? For most people, this feels confusing, maybe even frustrating. But it only feels that way because we were trained to believe in separation. Separation between ourselves and others, between ourselves and life, between cause and effect. We think people are out there, doing their own thing, unaffected by what we believe or feel within. But what if that was never true? What if what you've been calling reality is really just a mirror? And not a cold, lifeless one, but a living, intelligent reflection of who you're being inside. That's what Neville meant when he said, everyone is you pushed out. Not that you're a puppet master pulling strings, but that the version of people you experience is born from your own consciousness. You're not changing them. You're changing the relationship between you and them, which is based on your assumptions. And those assumptions live inside your state of being. That state is what gets pushed out and mirrored back. This isn't about control. This is about revelation. Because the truth is, people can't show up for you in a way that contradicts your belief about them. Not because they're brainwashed, but because your reality is being filtered through you. You think you're seeing them, but you're really seeing your beliefs about them. That's the secret. That's why it's not manipulation, it's manifestation. You're not forcing anyone to do anything they don't want to do. You're stepping into a state where your world, including them, already matches your new story. And it feels natural, because in that state, it's always been that way. The people in your life respond to who you are being, not what you're wishing for. That's why forcing doesn't work, but changing your state always does. The world isn't responding to your desires. It's responding to your identity. And when that shifts, the entire cast of your life begins to behave in ways that reflect that new identity. Not because you're controlling them, but because you've moved into a version of reality where that's just who they are. This is what it means to be the operant power. Not to dominate, but to choose the state and watch the world reshape to match it. We hear the words free will and we immediately assume it means no one else can change unless they decide to. That's how we've been taught since childhood. People have minds of their own. They make choices, and they do. But that's only part of the story. The part no one ever told you, the part you've been sensing your whole life but couldn't quite explain, is that while people absolutely have free will, your experience of them can never escape the boundaries of what you assume to be true. Not because they're trapped by you, but because your state decides what version of them you're aligned with. You're not changing people, you're changing stations, like switching to a different frequency where that version of them already exists. That's the part that feels like magic but is really just law. That's why Neville said, "No one comes to me unless I call them." The call wasn't a phone call or an external action, it was an inner shift. When you change your state, you call forth a different version of the same person without ever needing to say a word. And the moment you try to change someone without shifting your state, you're back in the game of chasing, manipulating, and waiting. The version of someone you experience is always consistent with your state. So if you're feeling rejected, unworthy, or unseen, the people around you will reflect that, often without even realizing it. They're not doing it on purpose. They're simply showing up as the version of themselves that fits your state. The moment that clicks, everything starts to make sense. You stop asking, "Why do they keep treating me like this?" And you start asking, "What must I be assuming about myself or them that allows this version to appear?" That's not blame. That's awakening. It's the most empowering realization you can have. You're not at the mercy of other people's decisions. You're experiencing life through the lens of your own identity. And the moment that identity shifts, everything else must follow. So instead of trying to change others, you shift yourself. You move into a state where love, respect, recognition, or whatever you desire is normal. And in that new state, the people in your life can't help but reflect it. Not because you forced them to, but because now it's simply who they are to you. It's not about robbing them of their free will. It's about meeting the version of them who was always in alignment with your new story. Let's sit with that for a moment, because once you truly understand this, a whole new world opens up, one where you stop chasing after what you want and instead align with who you already are. This is how Neville Goddard taught us to manifest. Not by forcing others to behave differently, but by transforming the very version of reality you're experiencing. Think about it. If your reality is truly just a mirror of your inner world, then you're never really waiting for anyone else to change. You're just waiting for yourself to step into the state where that change is inevitable. But most people get stuck trying to figure out how to control the outside world, how to make people act in ways they want them to. They ask things like, how can I get my specific person to text me first? Or how can I make my boss recognize my hard work? The problem is, trying to manipulate actions is exactly what keeps you in the loop of frustration and doubt. It's the old belief that what you see in the world is fixed. And if you want something different, you need to change the people or circumstances. But this is exactly the opposite of Neville's teachings. What Neville revealed is that you are the cause. The world, the people in it, are simply the effect. And this is where it becomes truly mind-blowing. You don't need to control anyone else's actions. You simply need to shift your assumptions about them and the situation. And when that shift happens, they can't help but reflect the change. This isn't just theoretical, it's a living truth. When you stop seeing someone as someone who ignores you or rejects you, and start seeing them as someone who adores you, you're tuning into a different version of them, one that already exists in parallel. And when you step into that state, it feels like you're just meeting them for the first time, like a revelation, a moment of course, this is how it should be. That's the power of Neville's law in action. You don't change people, you change your inner assumptions. And everything around you shifts. It's not about them, it's about you. And the more you step into this understanding, the more your world will reflect the peace, harmony, and love you've always wanted. Because when you change your inner reality, the outer world adjusts to match. You don't have to force anyone to love you, respect you, or recognize your worth. All you have to do is be the person who already has those things. This is where it becomes even more powerful. When you realize that everyone is really just playing a role in your personal drama. I know, this can be hard to swallow, especially when we've been raised to think that everyone else is an independent, autonomous being who acts on their own will. But if you've been practicing Neville's teachings, you've probably already felt that tinge of truth deep down. The world around you responds to who you are being, whether you're aware of it or not. It's always been this way. People don't just become the version you want them to be by magic. It's not like you get to script their lives and they blindly follow along, but they do reflect your beliefs about them. And the more powerfully you feel into your assumptions, the more automatically the universe rearranges itself to bring those assumptions into reality. The people in your life are showing you where you're holding assumptions that don't align with who you really are, your true self, the one that's already whole, loved, and capable of creating the reality you desire. Here's the kicker. Once you realize that the versions of people you interact with are not set in stone but rather malleable reflections, you stop fighting for control. You stop trying to get them to see things your way. And you begin to realize that they are already showing up the way you assumed they would, based on your internal story. It's like looking in a mirror that's been reflecting back your thoughts and feelings all along. The more you change your assumptions, the more that mirror shifts to reflect your new reality. What does this mean in practical terms? It means you can step into a reality where the people in your life treat you exactly as you desire. It means you can stop feeling like you have to manipulate or persuade anyone. Instead, you shift into the state where your assumptions about yourself, about them, and about your life are already aligned with your desires. When you shift, they have no choice but to reflect that shift. It's not about convincing someone. It's about becoming someone who is already living in the version of the world you want to experience. This is the heart of Neville's teachings, the understanding that the only power you truly have is over your own state of being. And once you master that, you stop needing to control others. You become the version of yourself who naturally attracts everything you want. The person you want to be with, the respect you want at work, the recognition you deserve, it's all available to you. Not because you manipulated anyone, but because you became the person who already had those things. This idea is so powerful because once you truly understand it, you realize just how much control you have over your own experience. No longer are you at the mercy of people's decisions or circumstances. You've shifted from the mindset of being a victim in your own life to becoming the conscious creator of it. And this isn't about pretending everything is fine or ignoring the reality of challenges. It's about realizing that everything, every moment, is a reflection of your state. Think about how you've lived up until now. How many times have you caught yourself waiting for someone else to act before you feel like you can move forward? How often have you allowed someone else's choices to dictate the course of your day, your emotions, or your sense of self-worth? It's a cycle that repeats over and over again, simply because we don't fully realize how much power we have in our own assumptions and beliefs. But once you realize that your state of being is the key, that it's your assumptions, beliefs, and inner reality that shape what happens in the external world, everything changes. You stop waiting for permission. You stop looking to others for validation or approval. You stop reacting to circumstances as though they are fixed, and you begin to act from a place of certainty. Certainty that the world reflects back who you are being. Certainty that you can shift yourself, and in doing so, shift everything else. It's not about forcing or manipulating. It's about becoming a vibrational match to the version of life you want to experience. It's about getting clear on who you are, and allowing that clarity to shape everything around you. You start to embody the state of the person who already has what you desire. Whether that's love, success, respect, or happiness, and from there, the universe can't help but meet you halfway. People show up differently. Opportunities come knocking. Your world transforms effortlessly. And that's where real power lies, not in trying to change others or the world around you, but in changing the only thing you can control, your state of being. When you do that, everything else starts to rearrange itself. It's the most freeing, liberating feeling to realize that you no longer have to chase after anything or anyone. All you have to do is step into the version of yourself who already embodies the life you've always dreamed of. The final piece of the puzzle, and this is where everything ties together, is when you finally let go of the belief that others are separate from you. The idea that you have to fight for someone's attention or approval, or that you need to manipulate them in some way to get them to see things your way, is a story that keeps you trapped. It keeps you in a place of lack, of feeling like you don't have control, of waiting for someone else to give you the green light. But once you understand that you are the creator of your reality, you realize that you're the one who gets to decide how things unfold. It all starts with you. It's in this realization that you'll feel a quiet relief, a freedom that's been there all along, but you just couldn't see it before. The world isn't at the mercy of other people's decisions. It's not a random series of events that you have no control over. It's a living, breathing reflection of what you believe and assume to be true. And once you shift those beliefs, the entire world must conform to them. The people in your life are merely acting out the role you've assigned them based on your inner assumptions. That's the magic. You don't need to force, manipulate, or control. You simply need to shift your state. And when you do, the universe rearranges itself to reflect your new truth. This is where Neville's teachings become a true revelation, because when you realize that you don't need to change anyone else, you set yourself free. You stop the cycle of chasing, pleading, or waiting for someone to make the first move. You take responsibility for your own inner world. And in doing so, you unlock the power to change your outer world without ever having to force a single thing. You've always had the power. It's not about changing others. It's about changing yourself. And once you do, everything else follows effortlessly. People will show up for you. Opportunities will arise. And life will unfold exactly as you've assumed it would. Because when you change your state, when you embody the version of yourself who already has what they desire, the world has no choice but to reflect that back to you. Now that you know the truth about manifestation and free will, what are you going to shift in your own reality today? Share your thoughts or any breakthroughs you've had in the comments below. I will meet you with another golden nugget. Happy manifesting.